think we just need to change the tone a bit. So we're going to move into what's been described as the dark arts, which is VFX. Visual effects have transformed dramatically over the past 50 years, from analogue ingenuity to today's digital artistry. This session brings together some of the wonderful people behind this work to explore how the craft has evolved and where it's heading next. Please welcome our moderator from Electric Theatre Collective, Stirling Archibald. Yay! With director Daniel Kleinman, founder of Glassworks, Hector Macleod, former MD at Rush's, Joce Capper, and my mate, Chief Creative Officer and founder at the Framestore, McGee. Thank you.
Nice. Well, I'd like to firstly thank the panel for being here today. These are people that I highly respect, and you know, they've been very much part of the groundbreaking of visual effects over the last, well, I don't want to say 50 years, let me not say that. But, you know, over the years, they've been very influential for a lot of us, and a lot of people in this room have probably worked in the companies that these guys are part of, and including myself, and also, you know, worked with the direct, like a person like Danny, really iconic work that we've just witnessed as well. And I think what I really wanted to get across today was we could celebrate what everyone has done in VFX, and we can talk about, you know, the contributions that we have, but I think it's really important that we highlight where it's been, obviously, because I think it's very important that everybody understands that we had a foundation to build from and where we're eventually going to. So with that being said, I won't hold the floor too much longer. I would like to go to Daniel first. Just looking back at the earliest breakthroughs in British VFX, what qualities as a pioneer from that pioneering era would you still say makes a difference today?
Well, I think that the main thing, when I first started directing, within my career, my life, it's gone from effects which were created with opticals, which is basically a film strip, and you get different film strips and you put the film together and project it and refilm it and send it off to the lab. You don't know what it's going to look like till you get it back, and now to, you know, artificial idiocy or whatever it's called, and you get to fucking. The change is so gigantic and enormous, and I suppose the difference is now that it's people. Perhaps the shock of the new is not quite what it was, because you'd find some new technique or some new thing would be invented, and I remember when I don't know, you probably remember when I was probably in Rushes or somewhere, and there was this machine called an ADO, which you move a little joystick, and the picture went like that, and then it flipped over like that. And everyone was going, whoa, that's absolutely amazing. And so then I did quite a lot of music videos with pictures flying around like that, you know. And you kind of think, well, actually, in a way, that the shock of the new is not a great thing, because what happens is if you use the technique, because it's a new technique that people have not seen before, in 6 months it looks old. And so, you know, perhaps some things that I did a music video for Thomas Dolby, and it won tons of awards, and it was like, everyone's going, wow, this is amazing. You look at it now, and it's so crap. And it looks, you know, it's so old-fashioned and hackneyed, and it's clumsy, because that stuff has gone out of date. So I think the most important thing, I'd say, is using special effects for the right reasons and the ideas. Like, you've got the idea, the special effect needs to be subservient to the construct or the idea or the inspiration or the storytelling, and not the other way around.
Yeah,
and that still applies today. I mean, that still applies today, and perhaps in a way, it's better today, because you see some amazing effect, and you're not really impressed just by the effect, because you know everything can be done and everything can happen. What you're impressed by is the idea and what it makes you feel and the story it's telling.
for sure. And just to add to that, I think from a visual effects background, I think a lot of us do feel that the storytelling is actually really important. It still is important. It's really what we all vibes from. We all want to be part of that actual narrative, and the execution is probably more important in what we're putting across on the film, rather than it just being about a massive impactful piece. But with that being said, I will say there has been a lot of visual effects that have actually helped the story as well.
Definitely.
So I'll go into you, Hector. The industry has invented itself multiple times now, over a long period of time. We're going to say 50 years, so there's no pun intended, right? What do you think has allowed British VFX to stay globally influential through all these shifts? Why do you think it's still really prominent?
First of all, it's been about 40 years for me, so I haven't made the whole century, unfortunately. Yeah. I think it's actually brilliant from today, because we had John Hegarty sitting here talking about the history of our fabulous industry, and I think there's a kind of element of DNA in it. So going right back to those early times, as we got a kind of moonshot almost from the energy of people like him and a number of other amazing people who were kind of stewarding the advertising industry, particularly the advertising industry then. And it created this kind of massive kind of energy that I think still lingers around today. And I think that that's carried through. And I also think it's because as the UK does have a kind of creative soul. There's a sort of island thing going on where, and they've also got a very good history with technology, as well as a big history in film opticals, which was what they were doing that way before anyone else with the Star Wars films and stuff. So it's kind of set into our DNA. And I think, the last sort of 35 years specifically, or maybe 35 to 40 years, has been dramatic in the kind of development of technology and the change in the tools that we use. But what's really exciting about it is how those tools become readily available but are used in creative ways and storytelling ways, etc.
Sure.
So I think it's in our DNA, is the answer to your question.
For sure. I think John touched on it when he was talking about the Perrier commercial earlier, about the identity and the creative being like taken in by everybody around because of the different nuances that it was nodded to the subcultures within London, or within the UK, should I say, at that time. So totally the DNA is a good way to actually look at that, for sure. I look at the way things have developed with the experimentation, and there's a lot to be said about, people from years ago being a lot more influenced by just doing things off the cusp, being a little bit rebellious. knowing that, you know, especially with VFX, this is something that hadn't been done before. Now you get to a point where it's like you've got a generation that it's their norm. So to Joce, how would you say to the evolving generation now, how do we keep that same passion when it comes to people having that sort of get up and go, the drive, the determination to make something new? I know we've just said that it's not as easy, but I think that imagination thing we have to hold on to. So what would you say to the new generation to keep that passion going?
I mean, I'm thinking about it, and as Hector said, sort of creativity is in all our DNA. And I think, you know, if you look back to, say, the first time we discovered cave paintings where somebody was using like a rock and some ash or something, you know, different painters who've been inspired by other generations, or John touched on Leonardo da Vinci, didn't he? Mm-hmm. Probably each generation thinks that they're maybe not inventing creativity, but pushing it, you know, experimentation. And that's what the whole industry's built on, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Which has really pushed visual effects, because with directors like Danny, who really want to achieve, not something that hasn't been achieved before, but it's more, visual effects provides the opportunity, right, to tell a story in a different way. I think that our tribe, our creative tribe, naturally comes together, and we bond together because we are a team. We want to make it as good as it can possibly be.
Yeah, for sure. Go on.
I think the best VFX artists also have a natural curiosity to understand how things are made and how things look, so that when we're recreating things in post-production, we can make things look real. So we were talking about getting notes back earlier, and the note that I always hate is make it look more real.
Fix it in post.
Fix it in post.
It's interesting that the making it look more real thing in a way that, you know, from a that resonates. I know that happens, but in a way you kind of look at things. You look at special effects now, and it was interesting in that those clips there. There's a lot of animals, and obviously in animals you want them to look real, because now filming with animals is really tricky, and you're not allowed to do it. It's probably not a good thing, but you want the animal to be as realistic as possible. But then also there's this other side of things where you look back at Ray Harryhausen films, or at sort of early special effect films, Molière, all those sort of people know it's a special effect. They're not trying to make it real. It's a bit like the difference between a painting and a photograph. It's got something in between you and reality. It's a reinterpretation of reality. So, you know, I hope that all the new sort of methods and technology, which is amazing in special effects these days, isn't just about making things real. It's about being able to be creative in the sense of reinterpreting the world in a way that you find surprising, different, and perhaps actually one step away from being real, if that makes sense.
It's interesting. In the UK, it is interesting also in the fact that it's unique, well, not unique anymore, but the fact that the directors work closely with the visual effects people. If you work in America or anywhere like that, there's literally almost a handover, and you work predominantly with the editor.
There's a massive part.
That's an enormous change. I used to sit with, as you know, used to sit in the suite and still sit in the suite and work with people. And the great thing I think about British special effects people is that they truly are the Renaissance people, because they're not only creative, but they're technically brilliant as well. And that's what I always look for in a partner or someone to work with in special effects, is someone who has artistic ability, but is also a fantastic technician, because you know, if you press the wrong button, everything deletes, and then you go, oh my God, you know, what's happened?
I was just going to say, Mike touched on something that you said, curiosity, and I think that's it's really so relevant, because if you think about it, whenever you're working on any project, you suddenly become a mini expert in lots of things, right, that you never thought that you would need to research or know about, you know. And an example of that would just say when we were working on something, we spent like 6 weeks talking about feathers and feather animation and how will we make that happen and different birds. And so that curiosity is, you know, really wanting to know how something moves. And the animal thing that you mentioned is sometimes things go in phases, don't they? Because as we've watched things being invented and upgraded, you watch kind of different animated films where, you know, fur was more possible, or cloth, or material and things like that. So I think the way that sort of moved on.
Yeah, no, I think... no,
sorry,
you go.
Just building on that, what's interesting now is that it feels like we can create fur, feathers, human skin. We can sit them into environments where a character will look like he's on the stage with us. He has the bounce light on him. He has the matching light from the ceiling. We can technically do all of that. And our animators now are concentrating on getting an emotional performance from that creature. And our lead animator at Framestore, his father was... he used to do the Kiora ads. I don't remember those from the old cinema. And he said to Pablo, his son, when you go to university, don't study animation because you're already a brilliant animator. Go and study zoology, because then you'll understand the underlying anatomy of a creature. So when a creature has to talk, you're not breaking the rules of natural science, but you have artistic license to push what a creature can really do. And that's what he did, and that's why I think creatures like Paddington are so successful, because of that understanding of true science.
For sure. It's just interesting that you're saying that about us, what you just said there, Danny, about the technical side of a visual effects artist or a producer, and also collaborating that with like the creative side. I think that's come to fore now, especially not even just with directors collaborating with directors. It's even down to the point of dealing with agencies, with creative duos at agencies, and understanding, you know, how we collaborate from the early stages and the conceptualization of what we do in VFX and how we can actually make a difference with that. So that will be my next question to you, Mike, would be basically how do we keep that sort of dream alive, where we make people understand that as visual effects artists, we're technically astute, but we're also creatively quite important in the process?
Well, I think that's, for us, that's been quite a big change from when we first started the company. Well, actually, we're 40 years old this month, so another 40-year-old. Then it was one artist in a suite on a box, working with one director, and then you would go on the shoot together, capture your material, come back, and then work for nights and nights, days and nights together to finish it. And you were given a script. You would try and get what the director wanted technically, make sure you went on set and captured it. I think what's changed now is that we much prefer to be a creative partner, and to be involved at the earliest possible stage of ideation, because that actually often changes the ideas itself if we're in the conversation at the beginning to explain and discuss what's possible. Because quite often an idea can change when we say, yes, we can do that, but we can also do this. We could amplify the idea. So I think the creative process is enhanced by having us work with the DP, with the director, with the art director, and the VFX people at the start of the process. And then we'd see that idea right the way through to final delivery.
Sure. Daniel, how would you feel to say that anything is possible in VFX nowadays? So the creative discipline becomes harder. What do you think about that? The storytelling, do you think that?
I think it does. I think there's a danger with a lack of rigour, I think, which if anything is possible, then you lose a bit of focus and a bit of urgency to what you're doing. I mean, I think it's like what you're saying, Mike. If you plan, you have got an idea and you plan and you take into account all what you need to make the effects, if you're using effects, work properly, and everybody's working as a team, and it's constructed so that we're all, you know, that's what I kind of think a job of director is, just to make sure everybody's got the same idea and we're all heading in the same direction. But sometimes, you know, I've been in situations where, you know, somebody out of the blue, you would have shot something, and someone out of the blue will say, well, you know, I know this was, this room had Baroque furniture in it, but we've changed our mind. You know, we want it to be, you know, Memphis or something. And so you, and to a certain extent, sometimes special effects companies have shot themselves in the foot by saying, well, yeah, okay, we can do it, and in the end you can do it, and it do it well. But if you feel you can kick the decisions down the road until later, I think that is a danger. I think you need that rigor at the beginning to make decisions and not just sort of meander your way to some kind of end. And that's nobody's fault. It's partly, I think, to do with the fact that a lot of agencies and clients have so many structures and there are a lot of voices that come in late in the day who aren't perhaps part of the process coming up, and everybody has to be heard. And you know, gone sadly are the days of the director as an auteur who could say, you know, well, this is how it is, and if you don't like it, you can bugger off. You know? So I think because of that, perhaps it should be ideally how you say everybody kind of works together at the beginning. You've got a kind of tight direction of knowing where you want to go. And I mean, it's a parallel would be sort of the difference between shooting on film and shooting on video. Whereas if you're shooting on film, you've got a can of film. And actually, that was in the budget. You used to say, okay, you've got 5 cans of film. And that's it. And when you've run out of the film, you can't film anymore. That's the end. So you have to be very kind of disciplined about what you're using, what you're shooting. You can't just do billions of takes. You have to decide what you're doing and make decisions clearly on the day, at the time, and be clear about it, not dither around. But and to a certain extent, I think creative filmmaking has lost a little bit of rigor there, as in the same sense, because with video it's just on a chip. It doesn't matter. You can keep filming, keep filming. And perhaps even, I don't know, Ivan Bird was talking earlier, you could, because of the range of aperture you can shoot at now, you don't even really, the amount of lighting and the craft of lighting is also sort of, you can change it in post and make things different. So that's a little bit of a cul-de-sac that I hope people don't go down, and that we still stick to the rigor and work as a team between the director, the clients, the agency, and everybody is willing to sort of make a decision and stick to it.
And it's kind of also to the point where you put all the energy that you should be putting into making a job look amazing into people changing their mind or changing something, and everything goes off course. And once you go down that road, you're on a kind of road of real, not nice pain. The nice pain is when you're working really hard on something you know you've got to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's amazing, I was just going to say, like the difference, just say commercials are really efficient, I think, and the fact that the director and the producer are there, you know, and they're working with the agency. I mean, if you've worked on any other genre of visual effects, you know, film or long form, it's a completely different structure. Quite often the director's at the end of the chain, and decisions aren't made, and inefficiency and lack of decision making is really expensive, usually for the visual effects and post-production company. And so, you know, it's amazing, I think, how efficient and how cool, like, the commercial teams are.
Yeah,
and like efficiency and creativity and actually, you know, making stuff happen fast.
So yeah, I think, well, that's actually quite interesting that you say that about things happening fast, because nowadays, touching on technology, talking about efficiency, volumes of work, how quick we get things done, budgetary restraints, is so much to be said for that now, that there's so much emphasis, as you guys are saying, on the fact that we're thinking so much about logistics that sometimes the creative nuances get forgotten. Not forgotten, but sometimes it's not always the main focus, especially when it comes to the VFX side of us doing that final last slog of what we need to achieve, you know? Yeah. But going back to the question I asked you before, Mike, about the collaboration and about how we've changed that sort of dynamic, and how important is it to the VFX being an intricate part of the initial processes to make sure that when we get to those creative stages, we have freed up a lot of the questions and a lot of the logistics that might not necessarily have to be a VFX solution, because we've been involved in a conversation from the beginning. So with that, to you, Hector, I'd ask, how do you get the aspiring artist's mindset to matter more about rather than mastering a particular tool, for them to start thinking outside of the box of what they're actually offering up as an artist, which is very important, but what is it that makes them?
I think, I mean, just from my experience with working with like a lot of very talented artists, the one sort of common strain between them is their taste, which is a word that's popped up quite a lot today, and sure. It's such a vital part of, and it's a trust thing as well, the taste between a director and an effects supervisor or an operator, and it's and that I think it's difficult to teach taste, but you can learn taste, I think. And I would say that if someone was training to become a part of this industry, which is becoming more and more kind of perilous now as more and more things are done that people used to train on by automated machines. But I think the thing to learn probably is learn about art, learn about photography, learn about drawing, learn about modelling, learn about anatomy, which I think is very important, and learn about the real physical world around us, and not learn where the buttons are, because that can be taught very easily.
God, that is so... You're right.
Yeah, for sure.
If anyone wants to...
But it is
that's why I think life drawing,
yeah.
If the one thing they can teach you how to be creative is doing life drawing, because it makes you've got to make decisions.
We used to do life drawing at Glassworks, but unfortunately they got a bit dirty.
Yeah, I'd say we still do life drawing.
Yeah.
We have sculpture classes. We have improv classes as well, actually,
Drawing,
for animators. I think all of those traditional crafts and actually talking about them, because I think a big asset to being a great VFX artist is communication skills.
Yes.
Being able to interpret a brief, reflect that brief back to make sure you have an understanding, so you're not wasting any time when you're in the execution stage of a shot. I think the craft of storytelling is really important as well, looking at a shot and understanding where people's eyes are going to go to in that shot, especially in a commercial where a shot's a few seconds. We, as effects artists, can often get drawn into pixel pesting, where we're in there retouching things that only we are going to see as artists. But in the play of the commercial, no one's ever going to see it. So I think to add to the things you've mentioned, I would say the art of storytelling as well, understanding the narrative of the piece that you're making, as well as the execution of the visual effect.
No, for sure. So Danny, a bit of a, not controversial, do you feel VFX gets the credit it deserves?
It probably doesn't. I think when you look at some of the special effects and stuff, I think you can have fantastic special effects with a lousy idea, and it will be lousy. You can have not very good special effects with a great idea, and everyone will go, "That's great." When you've got a great idea and great special effects, then you've got a bit of magic, and that's so the special effect which enhance everything and it all works harmoniously. That's the most brilliant. That's the most brilliant thing, and yeah, then I really. The plaudits then go to the director, sadly, rather than the effects. So, you know, I am very grateful to all the people that I've worked with, especially. But also, I mean, weirdly, on another way of looking at it is that a lot of the time people don't even know they're looking at special effects.
Yeah.
That's
So,
the invisible
when you
art.
kind of, you know, I think I was telling you before that I did an ad with there's a bloke, what's his name, Mo Salah, and some other footballer, Messi, and they were meant to be playing football together in a petrol station, in a petrol station, and they were. I don't know. Anyway, the petrol station for some reason had to be in South Africa. I shot Messi in Spain, and I shot Mo Salah in Manchester, and they had to look like they were playing football and that they were best mates, and they'd never met, and they weren't even in the same country. And the amount of special effect stuff that was put together to make that look like that was real, you know, nobody even noticed. You know, it just looked like an ad. You just gone and shot a couple of blokes kicking a ball around. It was, but actually, it was incredibly complicated to do, and the craft of getting it to look like it was real was, you know, sort of was difficult. And so obviously, the special effects people got no credit for that at all.
Well, we often get to the stage now where we make a commercial so seamlessly that yes, you can't tell there are VFX. But we're also not allowed to say that we did
it.
Yes,
VFX
exactly.
or show the work that we did.
Yeah.
And we had a commercial recently that we entered for the Visual Effects Society Awards, and it won Best Visual Effects for the effects that were not in the commercial, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's and that happens more and more. It happens in features as well.
Yeah.
That people want people to believe it was all in camera.
Right.
And the effects are done so well that you can't question it.
There's a kind of paradoxical ad out right now for Coinbase, which is just
I've
fucking
seen- yes.
brilliant. It's
Really
absolutely
cool.
amazing. And
Yeah.
it's completely the opposite. It turns all this on its head. It basically looks like it's been done with special effects, but it hasn't. It's been shot in live action. And it's got this kind of weird thing when you look at it, you don't know what you're looking at, but it's really interesting. And it's nice when you get that thing where things get spun on their head. You know?
That's sweet.
So again, I think the technical conversation, you know, we know that there's a lot to be said about what we can do with visual effects to not make people question what's been done in camera to what has been done in camera. And I feel, from my experience as an artist, we really pride ourselves on that work where someone doesn't know what's been done. Annoyingly nowadays, the first thing that they say in comments is, this is AI. Right, so it's actually become like a bit of a renaissance of now doing BTS again, which I think is cool because it allows us to actually show what we do. It's not just always in award scenarios that these categories are broken down to actually give us the space to be seen of what is technically involved. But with the AI question, it's entering our workflow. What human skills will become more important in post-production as it becomes more prominent? I'll aim that at you, Mike.
I think I'd go back to taste again. I think it's creation and curation, I think, are the two things. So it's easy enough to get AI to throw a lot of stuff at you, but then you as the artist or the person generating those images then have to decide what's good taste, what's going to tell the story you want to tell, and whether the quality of the picture that you're receiving back has the best light or the right light or tells the right story. So I think all that comes down to the things that we try and encourage our junior people to learn, which is the real art of storytelling and understanding when you've created something that you should keep and continue on.
Sure. And, you know, this is a thing about AI as well. It's something that's been mentioned a lot of conversations today and otherwise about it being a tool and how it's actually, it is becoming more prominent in everyday life in different industries. So, you know, has anyone got an opinion on how they feel it's actually changing things, or do they feel that it's something that we should embrace?
I think we need to embrace it because it's there.
It's there, right?
I think a good way of describing AI, or to try to sort of make a mantra for it, is to call it augmented intelligence. So effectively, it's part of what you do. It's not everything you do. And I think, but it's, you know, it's going to do things that we can do quicker and cheaper, but not probably better.
For sure.
And you can't, as it was said this morning, the iteration is such an important part to a process, you know, being able to change things and go back and noodle stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's a huge conversation, and that, you know, that generic term AI, it covers a lot of things, doesn't it? I mean, for us in visual effects and post, you know, for us, it's probably making things that would be time-consuming, repetitive. You know, that systems are built around, you know, making the pipeline more efficient. And I said this earlier, but so much money is wasted or has to be spent right on all the backroom stuff that clients wouldn't be aware of and don't need to be. And so for me, anything that helps speed up those processes so that creative people can concentrate on creativity is a really good thing, you know, because then the money gets spent where it should be. And, you know, I know that we're seeing, say, a lot of AI films more in like graphic-based stuff at the moment. And I think that, you know, that's obvious why that's, you know, it's not necessarily client-orientated stuff, or it's not as regulated as, you know, all the other standards, broadcast standards and things like that that we have to adhere to in visual effects. But I think it's an interesting time. It's, you know, there's no standard regularisation, but I think, you know, not to embrace it and to understand how it can be helpful. What was the term used? Augmented?
Augmented intelligence,
It's
yeah.
good. I should use that. It's good. So, thank you.
Yeah, but for me, it's about, AI is about harnessing the potential it has. I do believe that in the hands of an experienced artist, we can get results different to someone just throwing a bunch of prompts into the system. I think that, well, what we're trying to do at Framestore is integrate it at relevant points in the pipeline where it can do a particular task. We have ethical issues, obviously, with some of the AI tools that are just on the market, but we do assess those and work out if there's an unethical section to that software, can we replace that with our own data sets? So we're trying to do that where possible. And what's interesting is we have a machine learning and AI tools group at Framestore. It's got almost 500 people contributing to it. And I mentioned curiosity earlier. Our artists are excited by the potential in AI, and they're bouncing, have you seen this? Have you seen that? I've tried this with a bit of CG software. And we are able to adapt and use certain AI tools now to create content that is ethically sound, but is creatively driven by low poly CG models, for example, and then applying AI to render backgrounds. So I feel there's a lot of potential there. It's just being able to harness it in a way that we can let clients iterate and directors iterate in the way we've done traditionally.
For sure. And again, just to add to that, I mean, us at Electric, it's exactly the same thing. It's something, I asked the question because you get different answers, but I agree totally with what you're saying. It's like how it's been implemented within the workforce, pipelines, how it actually makes things more efficient, but without the right artists and the right people behind it, it's something that can be exhausted if it's not used correctly. But then I believe that if you have people that are really enthusiastic about it and bouncing ideas from each other, as you said, then it's something that can be a very positive change in what we're doing today.
Because visual effects is always like the best visual effects artists are creative artists, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's not about the technology. That's an aid. That's a tool, right? An aid. That's your paintbrush. But you know, the first thing that you teach people is that actually filmmaking is collaborative, and you know, your communication skills and your artistic skills as a visual effects artist, I always think far outweigh that technical capability. Mm-hmm. There's a support service behind you for that, but that's not the main thing, is it?
No.
Really?
No. So with that being said, I feel that we are here to celebrate today what VFX brings to the table. I think, you know, the panel here can speak volumes of, you know, being the blueprint, shall we say, of, you know, the groundbreakers, the risk takers. But I think it's also important just to let everybody know that we're here to keep the momentum and make sure that the next generation is working with what has been placed before them. We have 19 seconds, 15 seconds.
Slick.
Thank you very much.